Good afternoon, everyone. I'm like to start the PJRFSI Cannabis Safety Standard for Cultivation webinar. So welcome to the webinar. Just a little bit about myself and Perry Johnson. My name is Lauren Maloney, and I am the Food Safety Program Accreditation Manager for Perry Johnson Registrars Food Safety, Inc. We're located here at the headquarters in Troy, Michigan, but we're a part of a family of 72 other companies. We're a global corporation with offices in Europe, Asia, and the Americas, as well as China, Japan, UK, and India. PJRFSI offers a wide range of food safety certification types, from HACCP to GAP to GFSI, organic and gluten-free. And recently we have added cannabis safety audits to our program. We're in process of becoming accredited by ANSI, or American National Standard Institute, and so we will most likely see that first quarter 2020. So the importance of food safety in the cannabis industry, and why does it matter? Well, food safety is the production of safe food that will not make the customer sick from ingesting it. We will explore the reason food safety and cannabis product safety is so important. So why cannabis safety? Well, the cannabis industry is like the Wild West. It seems like new inventive cannabis-infused products are popping up everywhere. Cannabis and CBD-infused drinks, gummies, powders, chocolate, coffee, lotion, tinctures, and even dog treats are just some of the products on the market. An increase in products and demand leads to an increase in demand for cannabis flower. So growers may have the cannabis experience, but lack the knowledge of agricultural product safety. So what's the producer responsibility? Well, growers have the responsibility to grow cannabis flower safely. This means implementing the appropriate controls from seed to harvest. Controls need to be in place for irrigation water, fertilizer, pesticide applications, and harvest practices. Ensuring that food safety is properly implemented takes a commitment from everyone in the company, from upper management to the production employees. So what's the regulatory responsibility? The U.S. government is responsible for setting food safety standards. Agricultural products typically fall under the Department of Agriculture and under FDA through the Produce Rule. These regulatory bodies also conduct inspection and enforce laws that are applicable. Furthermore, growers and farmers must follow any state and local regulations and licensing. However, marijuana is not federally legal, and so regulation is left up to the states to define requirements, as well as the agency that will enforce those requirements. Marijuana legality by state is ever changing. Each year, more states are legalizing medical marijuana or recreational marijuana and marijuana-infused products. 11 states, with Illinois being the newest member to have legalized marijuana, as well as the District of Columbia, have made recreational or adult use of marijuana legal. In addition, 22 states have legalized medical marijuana. A few more states have decriminalized it, and the remaining 9, it's still illegal. Hemp is defined by THC levels below 0.3%. Currently, 41 states have enacted hemp legislation, which means that hemp can be grown in those states under research or pilot programs. The 2018 Farm Bill removed hemp from Schedule 1 controlled substances and made it legal. In December 2019, the USDA published their interim final rule for public comment. Under the Farm Bill, mandates that states and Indian tribes must submit a plan for approval by the USDA for domestic production of hemp. In states that do not have or submit a plan, then USDA establishes a federal plan. Food safety in the cannabis industry is important because it is only legal in select states and is not regulated federally like other food and drugs. Cannabis cultivation and product manufacture is not enforced by the FDA or USDA, and instead the safety of the products are enforced through state-appointed divisions, which can vary even by county. Even though CBD is derived from a legal plant, hemp, FDA has not approved any CBD products or allowed CBD to be added to any dietary supplement or food. Currently, the FDA has only approved one prescription drug to treat epilepsy. The lack of conformity between state regulations adds to the confusion in this ever-growing and changing marketplace. State agencies split up the responsibility of managing different aspects of cannabis, like Oregon, California, and other states put a broad program under one agency, like the Department of Taxation in Nevada, which doesn't always seem to make a lot of sense. If the agency doesn't understand or enact requirements to make safe products, how do consumers know what they're ingesting? We are slowly seeing more and more legalization, but that is going to take time. While we are waiting, marijuana is continued to be grown and products are being produced. So, cannabis food safety. Consumers of medical marijuana are often immunocompromised, elderly, or young. CBD products have varying label claims for medical benefits, and higher than intended levels of CBD or THC could cause unwanted effects. Marijuana flower and cannabis products are not free from product recalls, just much like our food products and drugs. Cannabis can be recalled for food safety issues such as molds and yeasts, pathogens, pesticides, and heavy metals. Without rigorous controls in place, it's easy to make mistakes and make someone sick in the process. And recalls can be costly. Disposal of contaminated product is expensive, and settling lawsuits for hurting a consumer is even more so. Agricultural product concerns can come in many forms. Improper growing conditions, handling, and storage can result in dangerous risks for consumers. Two of the primary types of mycotoxins that are associated with cannabis are aflatoxins and ochratoxins. Medical and recreational marijuana are often contaminated may be contaminated with insecticides, fungicides, rodenticides, and other compounds used to eliminate or prevent infestations. Many of these compounds are the same used by fruit, grain, and vegetable farmers. However, some pesticides that are used in the marijuana grow operations are not even labeled for use on food crops. Currently, the states must develop their own pesticide use controls, as well as the means for making sure those regulations are being followed. Pesticide use on cannabis is not regulated by the EPA, but it is not recognized as legal by federal government. Growers receive no guidance from these federal agencies as to what is applicable to cannabis flower. Contamination from water, pests, and humans can even easily happen without monitoring and diligence. Certification and implementation of additional food safety and cannabis safety requirements can help reduce and mitigate these risks. Another area concerned is product testing. Often the state requires certain testing protocols, including how and when sampling and testing must be done, what tests are conducted, and if the lab needs to be accredited to 17025. But each state has different requirements. Without uniform testing requirements, it's difficult to evaluate the safety of products between states. Cannabis packaging regulation is ever-changing. From recreational to medical marijuana, the rules and regulations are extremely specific and strict. It's important to not only make sure you follow all the packaging requirements, such as child-proof and tamper-proof packaging, but it's also important to consider the food safety aspects of packaging and labeling as well. Consideration should be given to type of packaging used. Is it traditionally used for a food product? Is the marijuana product contacting the packaging, and if so, are there any risks for chemical contamination? Finally, the labeling of products is extremely important not only to meet state labeling requirements, but to ensure the information is correct and accurate. What logos or symbols can be used on the labels and what wordings must be printed. So now I'll talk a little bit about cannabis certification, audit types, and steps to certification. Third-party certification is independent of state or federal regulation or inspection. Third-party is a private certification scheme that provides auditing and certification to a recognized set of food safety standards. Many of the food safety standards are based on good agricultural practices, such as GAP, Good Manufacturing Practices, GMP, and Codex Alimentarius, Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, or HACCP. Often, larger food manufacturers or retailers are requiring their suppliers of raw material to have third-party certification. This is an additional requirement beyond what is required by the U.S. government. Third-party certification builds on regulatory requirements, adding additional procedures, processes, and controls to help ensure the food is safe. Types of food safety audits. PJRFSI can offer a few different types of food safety and cannabis safety audits. First is our own cannabis safety standard. This can be used for hemp and marijuana cultivation, as well as marijuana or hemp products, including both food products, solutions, and concentrates. For growers that are looking for a step up, then GFSI benchmarked audits are available. SQF allow audits in Canada for marijuana and hemp growers, although SQF does not allow certification for marijuana growers in the U.S. due to its not being federally legal. Global GAP for agriculture and growing of hemp is allowed, and then there's another option. There are many benefits of certification. Without the federal regulation and lack of state oversight or in-depth requirements, certification can help to mitigate risks to public health and safety. Certification can allow companies to promote their products with more confidence of their safety. It can help to increase consumer confidence. Consumers are even more unfamiliar with cannabis legislation and requirement. Certification can help increase consumer confidence and help companies rise above the competition. Finally, it can help reduce recalls, save money, and save lives. PJRFSI can offer a pending letter of certification for all of our contracted clients. This letter states your schedule and timeline for certification. This allows your customers to see you are working with an accredited certification body, and it shows a commitment to cannabis safety to your stakeholders, employees, and potential customers. So let's go over the steps to certification. PJRFSI can provide a free quote. Once you contract with PJRFSI, we'll then provide the pending letter. After you review and implement your cannabis safety system, we then schedule the audit. Typically, the auditor will want to review 3 months of production records. This may include records such as pesticide application records, fertilizer application records, harvest records, and processing records. Prior to the audit, we can schedule a pre-assessment. This optional audit is prior to the certification audit to help to identify any gaps in your program. We're able to identify gaps, but we cannot consult or tell you how to fix those gaps. For that, you would need a consultant. Our project managers are able to refer you to a consultant if need be. The next steps will be to conduct the audit. Your auditor will conduct the audit on site. The auditor will go through all the requirements by reviewing records and procedures, interviewing employees, inspecting the growing area and surrounding sites, and any storage or transportation areas. If the auditor sees any nonconformity, they will document it, and those will need to be corrected to achieve certification. After the audit is finished, you will have 30 days to implement any corrective actions for the nonconformities observed. Once this is completed and accepted by your auditor, PJRFSI's executive committee will review and make the certificate decision. Finally, PJRFSI will issue the certificate. Cannabis safety standard certificates are valid for 1 year, and the next year you would go for recertification. Now I'd like to take a look into PJRFSI's Cannabis Safety Standard for cultivation. PJRFSI Cannabis Safety Standard for cultivation is applicable for both marijuana and hemp growers. It's based off of USDA's GAP requirements, or Good Agricultural Practices, and state-specific requirements. This will be applicable to both indoor and outdoor grow operations. One of the questions is how to be audit ready. How can you be audit ready? You can schedule pre-assessment of a gap analysis prior to your certification audit. This will not only allow you to identify any gaps in your system, but you will be able to have an understanding of the process of the certification audit. It is essential that you review the standard and implement the requirements. The auditor's checklist is taken directly from the standard and you'll be audited to those requirements. Employees will need to be trained. Implementing cannabis safety is everyone's responsibility, from top management to production line employees. Training is essential. Specific food safety and cannabis safety training is needed, especially for those employees that come into contact with the product. It's a good practice to conduct an internal audit of the standard to help identify any deficiency before the auditor is on site. Finally, if any deficiencies are identified, corrective actions should be implemented so that problems do not reoccur. So part 1 of the standard includes GAP requirements, which is broken up into 4 sections. This includes good agricultural practices, operations and harvesting, post-harvest operations, and storage and transportation. Part 2 of the standard is U.S. state cannabis regulations. The first section of the standard covers general requirements, traceability, workers' health and hygiene. General requirements include a documented food safety plan and someone designated to oversee the food safety program. A traceability program must be implemented, including performing a mock recall, and production areas must be identified so traceability can be can be traced back to different areas of the production. Section 3 covers worker health and hygiene. Let's take a closer look at Section 3. Drinking water must be available to all workers, and proper sanitation and hygiene practices must be followed by workers and visitors. These include hand washing before work or after visiting the restroom, or when hands and gloves become soiled. Hand washing signs must be posted, and restrooms must be available with single-use towels, toilet paper, hand soap, and water. Hand washing water must meet microbial standards for drinking water. Smoking and eating must be prohibited from the growing area, and a designated spot must be provided. There must be a blood and bodily fluid policy, and first aid supplies must be available for minor injuries. Workers must be trained on procedures and proper hygiene and workers must be trained on the procedures and hygiene, and visitors must be informed of the policies as well. Sections 4, 5, and 6 cover water usage, soil amendments, and agricultural chemicals. Looking deeper into Section 5 and 6, soil amendments such as compost or fertilizer made from animal origin must not propose a risk of contamination. If raw or incompletely treated manure is used, it shall be used in a manner so that not to serve as a source of contamination. Agricultural chemicals such as fertilizers and pesticides must be applied by a trained and licensed person or under the direction of a licensed person. All application must be made to label requirements and to the prevailing regulation. Section 7 is for outdoor cultivation and includes sewage treatment, animals, wildlife, livestock, and outdoor soil. Let's look at outdoor soil a little closer. Outdoor soil requirements include a land risk assessment to be performed, and when a risk is identified, then steps need to be taken to mitigate any potential risk. This may include testing of the soil for any contaminants, or testing in flooding areas that include microbial hazards. Section 10 deals with indoor cultivation. Indoor growing areas should be free of standing water, litter, and debris. Floor drains should also be free of any obstructions. Glass materials above the growing area are contained in case of breakage, and animal and pests are excluded. There should be a policy describing procedures which specify handling and deposition of finished product that comes in contact with the floor, and any pallets or containers are clean and in good working condition. Operations and harvest sections include sanitation and hygiene in harvest and transportation. The requirements for harvest include harvest containers that come in contact with product are cleaned and/or sanitized on a regular basis. All harvest equipment such as knives, pruners, etc. are kept clean and disinfected on a scheduled basis. A glass or plastic breakage policy is required, as well as product contamination, as well as a policy for product contamination by chemical, petroleum, pesticides, or other chemicals is required. Finally, transportation equipment should be clean and in good repair. Post-harvest operations would be applicable to any operation that trims, dries, or packages cannabis flower. Post-harvest requirements include packing, packing house worker hygiene, and packing house general housekeeping. It also includes traceability, maintenance, and sanitation. If an operation does not perform any of these activities, then this section may be excluded. Storage and transportation would be applicable for the cannabis flower storage area and transportation to the processor retailer. This includes product containers and pallets used in storage and transportation, pest control in the storage and transportation areas, transportation itself, workers' health and personal hygiene, and traceability. State-specific cannabis rules will depend on each specific state. They would also be specific to whether an operation is growing marijuana or they're growing hemp. For each one of our checklists is designed specifically to have the state requirements included. Currently, we're offering PJRFSI Cannabis Safety Standard as a free download on our website. You can access it by going to our Cannabis Safety Standard and clicking the link. Finally, PJRFSI will be hosting the last webinar in the series on March 20th, 2020 for cannabis retailers. For further questions on webinars, you can contact customer service at PJRFSI.com. I'm here available to answer any questions. Feel free to type your questions in the chat box or the question box, and I will be able to answer them as they come up. One of the questions I see is slide 24 mentioned that sites need cannabis-specific training. Where is that available? You can contact PJRFSI for details about cannabis-specific training that we may be able to offer for you. Otherwise, we can refer a consultant that would be able to help you with that. So feel free to contact us, either call or email, and we'll get you that information. Any other questions? Okay, well, it looks like there's no other questions at this time, but if you think of anything in the future, you can feel free to reach out either by phone or email, and I'll be happy to speak with you further. I hope everyone today enjoyed the webinar, and thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Bye.